All right, take it away, Becky.
Okay, I call the December 11th meeting of the PASS Technical Group to order at 9:30 a.m. Just a reminder to update your Zoom name to your first and last name, followed by your library, so that way we can use that for attendance and minutes. And then if you jump in to say something, please say your name followed by your library, so that way it's easier for Ollie to record the minutes. Does anyone have any additions to the agenda? Okay. And then are there any revisions of the draft minutes that were sent out ahead of the meeting? Okay, hearing none, the minutes have been approved by unanimous consent as distributed. Next up, we have our officer reports. Um, we don't have much, but I guess I just want to say that I will not be here for the spring meeting. My wife is pregnant and we're expecting a baby in February, so I will be on leave. Thank you. Okay, so now moving on to, oh, there's so many little heart emojis floating on my Zoom screen. It's very cute. Now moving on to CCS staff reports. Deborah?
I have just a couple of updates for the group. First, Rolling Meadows and Wakanda were officially approved as our newest CCS members at the November governing board meeting. So they are our 33rd and 34th member libraries. We are currently looking at a go live in October of 2026 for them. So if there's any Rolling Meadows and Wakanda staff here, welcome to CCS. We're so happy to have you. But we'll start working on that project in the new year. So we're really, really excited that we continue to grow. My next update for the group is a new version of Polaris is coming out this month. It should be out within the next week or so. It is Polaris 8.0. We're tentatively upgrading our training server the first week of January. I think the date is January 6th. So we don't have our production upgrade date scheduled yet. We always upgrade our training database first. CCS staff does some pretty extensive QA and testing and creation of documentation before we upgrade our production environment. Right now, we're thinking our production upgrade will be early spring, so Marchish or April. So we'll share that date with the group once we know. As part of this upgrade, we're currently on Polaris 7.7. We skipped the upgrade to Polaris 7.8. So as part of this upgrade to 8.0, we'll be taking new features available in both 7.8 and 8.0. So if you're interested in poking through what those updates are, I'm going to pop the link in the chat. Um, so this is the Polaris product portal. The product portal contains all of the upcoming and past development items that have been added in new releases. So if you're curious what's coming our way, take a look at that. I will tell the group, you'll be very excited. There's going to be an official display workflow in Polaris 8.0. So we no longer have to employ our workarounds and hacks to manage display items. So we're pretty excited about that and think and hope that this group is pretty excited as well. So more to come on those features at our next meeting. All right, and those are my updates, Becky. Uh-oh, you're muted, Becky. You're probably just turning it back over to me, though.
Okay, so now we have nothing for old business. So new business, Deborah has a BiblioCore presentation talking about the implementation overview. Um, so go ahead, Deborah.
All right, we get all settled here. Okay, so we received a couple of requests from this group to talk about our upcoming migration to BiblioCore today. So I'm going to start by reviewing our project schedule and timeline. Then I'm going to hop over to BiblioCore to give a really brief demo. And then I'm going to turn it over to all of you to share your thoughts on a couple of BiblioCore features that we're seeking feedback from this group on. Before I do that, I am just going to pop a link in the chat. Just so you have it handy, this is our project page for BiblioCore on our website. You don't have to open it now, but it's there for your reference after the meeting is done. It contains the schedule information that we'll go over today. So here is the planned timeline for our BiblioCore implementation. And for those of you who aren't familiar with BiblioCore, we will be replacing PowerPack, our current discovery interface, with BiblioCore next year. So we're currently in the midst of that project. We've broken the project down into several phases. It kicked off a couple months ago in October and will culminate with a launch for most of our libraries in late spring, May specifically. So I'm going to walk us through each phase of the project. Our first project stage, which we're coming to the end of, was kickoff and initial preparation. So during this phase, we completed contract negotiations with BiblioCore. We met with the BiblioCore implementations team to begin project work, and we began to collect configuration information from our libraries in the form of 2 surveys, which are currently due next week if you're working on them. We're currently in the process of taking some configuration elements to various groups, including Pass today, as well as database management next week, for some recommendations on standardization of settings. Once we wrap up this phase, the next one is installation and preparation. So during this stage, BiblioCore will take all of those settings that we've gathered and submitted to them, and they will build out and configure our sites. So a site for each of our libraries. This phase will run through the first week of February. So again, once we've gotten all that config information to BiblioCore, they're taking it and they're building our actual BiblioCore sites. In early February, we'll move into the validation stage, and that will run approximately 1 month. In this stage, BiblioCore staff are reviewing configuration, they're testing behavior in all of the tests and all of the sites that they've built, and they're working to resolve any reported issues with those sites. So during this stage, CCS staff will receive training and will start preparing internal materials, including a promotional toolkit to help aid all of you in your rollouts of the new tool. In mid-March, this is when things really get exciting for all of you. We'll move into that staff preview and training stage. Here, library staff will be trained on BiblioCore. Once you've received that training, you can then begin preparing content for your patrons in BiblioCore, including title lists for display in the catalog. At this time, again, you'll start preparing for your launch as well, creating a website widget to link out to BiblioCore. In mid-April, we move into the public preview stage. In this stage, we're soft launching BiblioCore to your patrons. So BiblioCore won't be your primary catalog interface yet, but we'll be inviting patrons to test it out and to submit feedback to us by linking to BiblioCore from PowerPack. So we haven't decided quite how we'll do that. We might put up a banner in PowerPack, header links, etc. But we'll encourage patrons to test out the new catalog and again to share that feedback with us so we can fix and resolve any issues before the actual launch. Your team you're gonna encourage patrons to explore, test, again, share feedback through that form. In this phase, your team can continue to make content for your BiblioCore site, and you'll really start preparing for that full launch. Part of this work is going to include auditing your website and your other tools for catalog links that need to be updated to point to BiblioCore instead of PowerPack. You might have book lists on your website, recommended reads. Maybe you link to PowerPack in your newsletter or your social media. So during this phase, again, we'll begin preparing for you to switch over all of that content to the new tool. We currently have May 19th set aside for our tentative launch date for BiblioCore. At this time, on this date, BiblioCore will become your primary catalog. You will begin linking to BiblioCore instead of PowerPack from your website, your social media, your newsletter, on your OPAC stations. All of those locations where that directs to PowerPack now will switch over to BiblioCore. PowerPack, I will say, will remain available to your patrons as a legacy or a classic catalog, but BiblioCore will officially become our discovery tool at this time. So we do recognize that May is a really busy time for libraries. You're preparing for summer reading and a lot of work is going into that. So we do want to make sure that we are accommodating libraries for whom May is not a feasible launch period. So if your library cannot launch in May, we will work with you to schedule an alternate launch date between May and October 2026, with the goal of having everyone live on BiblioCore by October and the Wakanda Rolling Meadows go live. So again, if your library has a lot of projects, I know we have some libraries doing renovations and other things, don't worry. We do have that alternate launch schedule if you're not able to launch in May with the bulk of CCS libraries. So Mieko is our project lead, and she'll be communicating, or has already, that with project leads and library directors. I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions. I know that was a pretty quick run through of the schedule. So feel free to unmute yourself or pop your questions in the chat if you have them. I see a question from Liz about the Communico app. Liz, my understanding is that the Communico app, I think, will still, PowerPack still remains up. So at this time, I don't believe there will be any changes needed to your PowerPack configuration. But go ahead and open a help desk ticket and we can walk through that with you together. All right. I don't see any more questions in the chat. But if you have them, just pop them in there and we can continue to go through. Yes. Meg said her manager wanted to ask about the configuration surveys. Meg, I don't know if you have specific questions. I'm going to do a quick demo of BiblioCore that might answer a question or two as we go through the interface. But if you want to go ahead and pop your specific questions in the chat, we can do our best to address them here. Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. So I am going to go ahead and hop over to BiblioCore to get rolling on a very quick demo. So before I start, I am just going to say this is not meant to be a full demo of BiblioCore. We are going to have training early next year. So this is going to be kind of a brief overview. All right. I have about 80,000 tabs. Hold on one second while I rearrange them all. Okay. So here, hopefully on your screen, you can see the Seattle Public Library catalog. So the Seattle Public Library is only using BiblioCore, and they have a separate website hosted by a different provider. So they are not using BiblioWeb for their website, which both Evanston and Glenview are. And Evanston and Glenview are both currently live on BiblioCore. So if you have already looked at Evanston and Glenview's BiblioCore sites, you might see some differences there because, again, they are using BiblioWeb for their website, which really integrates seamlessly with BiblioCore versus the site I'm on now, which has a separate website, and BiblioCore stands alone here. So we can see that BiblioCore has a really straightforward interface. You have your login option in that upper right-hand corner, and then we have that search box featured prominently to the right of their logo. We have our main menu located again underneath the logo and search box. The menu currently features here an Explore menu that has quick links to featured titles like new titles, award winners, and bestsellers. These lists are maintained by BiblioCommons. And then we also see two additional options here in Seattle's catalog. These are staff-generated content and include things like staff lists. So again, we've got staff picks and world languages here, which are staff-generated content that accompany the BiblioCommons generated resources as well. If you are completing Biblio config survey number 2, you are asked if you wanted to include these 2 pages and populate them with content. Libraries will be able to customize menus once we have access to BiblioCore admin. So again, if you're working on the BiblioCommons project, that customization of other menu items will come later. In terms of navigation, in addition to that top level menu, there are also items in the footer. Libraries can include up to 5 links in their BiblioCommons footer. And unlike PowerPack, these links don't mirror the header menu. So these links can have a different structure than your top menu navigation will be. Libraries can also here in your footer append a small amount of text or link to your own privacy and accessibility statement, again, here in the footer. I'm going to go ahead and switch over now to the Glenview BiblioCommons catalog. 1 second. I'll pull that up. All right. So here on your screen, we can now see the Glenview Public Library BiblioCore catalog. As I showed in the Seattle site, we do have our search bar located here at the top of the page. Libraries can add to the left of that search box, libraries can add additional options to search their website, your events page, etc. And these options will redirect the patron and launch a search in the destination site if selected in place of the catalog. When a user initiates a search into the catalog, I'm just going to search for Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. You'll see your search results roll up vertically with different formats and additions for each title listed or grouped together. So again, we see here for Lord of the Rings, this is the movie. We've got the Blu-ray 2010 edition, DVD, 2002 version, and then the 2001 version as well. Now here in Glenview's catalog, my search was currently scoped to only search Glenview materials. We see the option here to search all partner libraries, and if I toggle over to that search, BiblioCore will then incorporate results from all CCS locations. Now you'll notice when I toggled from Glenview to all partner libraries, again, switching from that single library search to searching the whole consortia, we see then additional formats added to my roll-up here for the Fellowship of the Ring. So now we'll see the 4K Blu-ray version, we'll see some additional formats display as well to accompany the original 4 that I think displayed when I first did the search. Now, when we are looking at a given title or a given format, the availability display is going to reflect availability at all CCS libraries, regardless of how the search is being scoped. So for example, if I click into this title, The Lord of the Rings, we see this availability statement appear on the right hand of the screen. We see 34 copies available, 34 copies total, 25 available. And this is again reflecting availability consortia-wide. Now, if a user wants to see availability by location, they can click this availability by location link. And this would pop out availability broken down by library. Because we're in the Glenview site, we see Glenview availability highlighted or pulled out first. And then again, we see availability at other libraries as well. So keep this page in your brain because we're going to come back to this in just a little bit. I'm going to go back to my search page by clicking search results. I want to highlight one other feature that we see on the search page, which is the Search Other Resources drop-down menu. These resources will display here at the top of the page. Anything listed here will also display on No Results Found pages and at the end of the search page. So with this Search Other Resources option, libraries can choose to highlight pages on your website, or you can link to external resources like WorldCat or Find More Illinois. So we can see here that the Glenview Public Library is linking to an ILL page on their website, as well as a link to their digital material on their website as well. So if you are completing that configuration survey, we are asking whether you want to include any additional resources in this menu. I'm going to go ahead and initiate another search here. I'm going to search for Sunrise on the Reaping, that latest Hunger Games novel. So here, from your search results page, a user can click on a title to see more information about the work itself, including summary, MARC data, which is available here in the About section, professional as well as community reviews and recommendations to explore further content. I do want to go down here because this is a great feature of BiblioCore. When a user clicks into a title, you'll also see staff lists created by library staff that feature that title. So here for this, this title, Sunrise on the Reaping, we can see that this title appears on several other staff lists, including Books Inspired Movies, Recommended Books for Adults 2025. So this is a really great reader's advisory opportunity for your patrons. Now, the first time a patron, I see a question in the chat. The question is, does the initial search field include Libby items? And the answer is, in your search results, yes. You will see e-content rolling up with physical materials here. Scoping, though, does work differently here in BiblioCore than it does in PowerPack. So when we are scoped to just, in this example, looking at Glenview titles only, we will only see e-content available at Glenview. When we release that scope and search all partner libraries, we do see e-content owned by other CCS libraries as well. But to answer your question, Ariane, yes, we will see Overdrive titles appear here. I see a question from Dawn. Community reviews are all BiblioCommons libraries, so not just CCS locations. And those users that are logged in can contribute reviews and rate titles if they choose to do so. Good questions. Keep them coming in the chat, and I'll go through as I pause. So again, that login option for BiblioCore is located in the upper right-hand corner of the page. The first time a user logs in, they will be prompted to set up a BiblioCore username separate from their Polaris login. So users can log into BiblioCommons with their username. They can log in with their library card, but that username is what will display with reviews or any list that they publish. So rather than have the user's barcode display, which we would not want. The username would display if they choose to contribute to that community content. So I'm going to go ahead and log in with my test barcode. And here we go. Okay, so I am now logged into my account. You can see my username displaying in the upper right-hand corner. So I was testing with a minor account at that time. And if the user is under 13, when they set up their username, they can't enter free text. They have to choose from a color and animal combination, which is why my username is bluebear15208, which I am apparently stuck with now. But again, that username will display in the upper right-hand corner of their account. And here's where they can access information about their account, including their list of checkouts, their holds, and so on. So I'm going to open up my hold account. We are going to come back to this in just a little bit. So I know that was a very quick overview, but I have some items that I really want to talk to this group about today. We're seeking a recommendation on 2 specific settings. I'm going to pop our link to our earlier demo of BiblioCore in the chat. That way you can review it or watch it if you haven't already. If you have questions about the Biblio interface as you're completing your configuration survey, go ahead and email us at help@ccslib.org, open a ticket, and we can walk through your specific questions so that you can get that survey completed. And again, I will say more training is coming your way. March, April, we'll have lots of training opportunities and demo for staff. So we are all going to be Biblio Commons or BiblioCore experts very, very soon. Pause and see if any questions came in the chat. I don't see any new questions in there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop back to my PowerPoint. And Becky, how am I doing on time? Okay, it looks like I've got about 13 minutes left. All right, I'm going to run through this. Okay. So, as I mentioned earlier, we are seeking input from this group on 2 BiblioCore settings. We would like to recommend a system-wide setting to database management for these 2 settings to help provide a consistent patron experience regardless of which library's BiblioCore site they're using. So the 2 items I'm looking for feedback from all of you on are the display of item due date and displaying the patron's place in the hold queue. So I'm going to walk you through those 2 features. So BiblioCore offers the option to display the due date of checked out items in a title's availability details view. So I'm going to hop back to Glenview's site, and I don't think they display this here. So actually, let me open up Evanston. Okay, so here I am in Evanston's BiblioCore site. I've done a search for The Women by Kristen Hanna. And if I open up availability, the availability view, once it loads, obviously items that are currently available do not have a due date displayed, but items that are currently checked out do show a due date here. Again, we are in the availability details view of currently The Women by Kristen Hanna, the print book version. So again, for items that are checked out, we have the option to display the due date of that item. I will note that the due date doesn't reflect, it's the current due date of that item. It doesn't reflect whether there are patrons waiting for the item, whether the item is holdable and may be trapped for a patron when it is returned on or before the due date, or whether that item is eligible for renewal. So again, it is just reflecting that current due date of the item. So I'm looking for some feedback from this group. Based on your experience working with patrons, do you think it's helpful to display the item's due date to them in the catalog? And I will open up the floor if you want to add comments in the chat, or if you're comfortable, feel free to unmute yourself. Okay, I'm seeing lots popping in the chat. Tracy from Northbrook says inclined not to include it since it doesn't account for pending holds. Kind of echo sentiment by everyone. Okay. Um, Probably not helpful. Okay. Does anyone think it could be helpful to patrons or staff?
The only case where I could see it maybe being helpful would be on the staff end if something maybe got missed in like a lost report and it alerted staff to the fact that something's been checked out for a really long time, to kind of prompt them to replace it if they didn't find that out in another way. But I think on the patron end, it's going to cause more confusion and maybe frustration.
I
Okay,
oh, I was gonna say
go
my
ahead.
thought is that sometimes there's people who don't want to place holds and they'll be like, oh, I'll just check the next time I'm here to see if the item's here. And for those people, if they see that due date, I think it would like reinforce that idea of like, oh, I don't need to place a hold because if I come back by this date, it's gonna be here. Um, and so I think yeah, I think that that's not necessarily the most helpful way to actually get people the item that they want. Um, and so I think it would just confuse them a little bit more.
Okay. And I'm seeing that sentiment echoed in the chat by most here, saying that there are certain scenarios maybe where it might be helpful, like non-holdable items like Popular Picks Lucky Day, but holdables might be an issue. I just to get like an official count from the group, I'm just gonna launch a poll quickly. Um, if you can go ahead and answer it that way, I've got the okay. I think I've never launched a poll. I think I've launched a poll for all of you. To input your option. Okay, I'll give everyone just a minute to fill out that poll. Looks like we are strongly in the no camp here. I'll give one or two or a few more seconds to fill that out before we jump on to that next item. With almost everyone replying, we are in the 97% no range here. So that is really helpful for our discussion next week at database management. I appreciate all that context that everyone put in the chat as well. So we're going to go ahead and we'll share that with the group. So thank you for that. We'll see how everyone feels about the next item, if we're on the same page with this one as well. So the next item is displaying the patron's place in the hold queue. So by default, the on hold page for the patron includes the user's position in the queue, as well as the number of circulating copies. So we currently do not display the patron's place in the hold queue in PowerPack. That was a decision recommended by the past advisory group back in 2017 as we were migrating to Polaris and PowerPack. But we do have the opportunity now to revisit that decision and display the patron's place in the hold queue if recommended. So I'm curious how everyone feels about this one, since it would be a change in our current practice. But based on your experience working with patrons, do you think it's helpful to display the patron's place in the holds queue? And again, feel free to chime in the chat, or if you're comfy, unmute yourself and share.
I think that because it's displaying their place in the overall hold queue, not their place in their home library's hold queue, it's going to make holds lists look artificially long, in the sense that patrons always get their books faster than what their place in the holds queue says indicates will happen, because we prioritize our own patrons. If we get a copy, we give it to our patrons, right? And if I if my patrons see their place in the hold queue the way that it's displayed in your example slide, I know at least 60% of them are going to see that and then just buy the book.
That was good feedback. There's a lot of feedback here in the chat. Some pros of patrons want to know what their place in the hold queue is. I know currently patrons can see their holds queue in some e-content vendors, including Overdrive, so maybe already used to seeing really high holds ratios. But also comments here saying it might be misleading since it's showing the overall holds queue. That number doesn't reflect how many copies your library owns, what place that patron is for your specific copies. We obviously know that Polaris prioritizes your copies for your patrons. So while I'm 454 on 299 copies here, if I'm the first one in line for my library, I would get the next copy available. Unfortunately, there is not a way to display both the overall queue and their home library's queue. That's something we might be able to suggest as an enhancement item, but right now it is just that overall queue. So let's see, I'm seeing some no's, too many factors. Library's current policy might not be to display the whole or to share hold queue information at all. Some pros of like it offers the patron an idea of how long it might wait, and it's here Catherine said it's kind of a bonus then when it comes in much quicker due to local copies and local holds ratios. Comments saying it will be less than helpful, misleading, and so on. Becky, you say your app displays the hold queue. Is that your Communico app or your library app?
Yeah, our library app. I'm not 100% sure who the developer is on it. It's not Communico, but it does show the holds queue. Um, and I feel like it ends up working well for regular library users. And then, after some time, I feel like they really get a good sense of like, oh, if I'm this part in the queue, it doesn't mean it's going to take like 6 months. And so if they're regular users, then it works out okay. But I see how other people say that, if you see your number 454, then you're just going to go buy the book. So yeah, I guess it depends on the patron.
And did you get complaints from patrons when you first launched that tool, or?
Um, I don't think so. Sometimes people might ask questions and then we just kind of explain like, oh yeah, but like if our library copy comes in, then you would get that one right away. And so it works out fine. And then we get people even before they could see it in the app who would ask us where they were in the queue. And we let our staff tell them, but then kind of explain that's throughout all of the libraries. So yeah, and like give them that extra information on like how many copies are there.
Right. I think that's helpful to hear. And there's a question in the chat from Tracy asking whether the number of copies listed include non-holdable copies or just holdable ones. And I believe it includes all copies, whether holdable or non-holdable. Okay, I'm seeing some really strong sway towards not displaying this, but I am going to launch a second poll so you can um, share your feedback there. So let me see if again I can figure out how to do this one. I don't know. Never mind. I guess I didn't put a poll here. Darn the luck. I wonder if I can make one really quick. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm gonna make one really quick. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna pop. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and launch this poll just so we can document your recommendations here and share that with database management. So again, go ahead and fill out this poll, yes or no. Would you recommend displaying the patron's place in the hold queue in BiblioCore? Okay, we'll give a couple more seconds for that one. All right. Looks like vast majority here recommend not displaying, though we do have of the staff attending here today, about 20% would recommend displaying the patron's place in the hold queue. So thank you again. If you have additional thoughts or feedback, feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'll make sure that that information gets shared with database management along with all of the responses that this group has put into the chat here. So that's really helpful for us as we kind of continue working on our BiblioCore config. All right, that brings me a couple minutes behind, so I apologize. But Becky, I'll turn it back to you so we can move on to the next agenda item.
Okay, our next item is a discussion about sharing resources. So this is from M. Ramirez. Sorry, I don't remember what your first name was, but if you're here, we'd love for you to introduce this topic. So we're going to introduce and receive feedback on the possibility of sharing reusable program supplies amongst different CCS libraries to promote sustainability.
Right. Thanks, Becky. Hi, everybody. My name is Megan Ramirez, and I'm with the Round Lake Area Public Library. It's so great to talk with you all this morning. And yes, so I'm here to gauge your interest and get some insight on everybody's interest or the possibility of somewhat formalizing supply sharing between libraries for program supplies. So a couple weeks ago, I reached out to CCS about somewhat formalizing this idea for sharing program supplies, but only with other libraries. So these would not be available to patrons to request. It would only be available to other library staff or other libraries within CCS to request these to use for in-house use. So for example, if my library had 15 looms because we did a loom program, we did a weaving program, and patrons loved it, but we don't plan on reusing the looms for another 8 or so months, there's no harm for us to share those looms with another library. So if, let's say, Grays Lake wanted to do a weaving program, they could ask us to borrow those and we would be able to send them to them. And they would return them to us before we even needed to use the looms again. So like I said, these would just be reusable supplies. So we would be reducing waste by reducing the number of libraries that are purchasing low use reusable supplies and hopefully saving libraries money by sharing. So what I would like to hear is if you all would be interested in a somewhat formalized program supply sharing initiative, and if your library might be interested in participating. So at this point, you're welcome to throw your responses or questions into the chat or unmute yourself, because I'd like to get a discussion going on this to gauge how you're feeling.
This is Courtney from Morton Grove. I just wanted to throw out there that youth services librarians have kind of been doing this informally for a long time with the die cut machine.
Yeah.
So like, sending dies through really the Rails bands.
Mhm.
So we like there used to be just like a binder that everyone had and printed out what everybody has at their own library. Um, we tried to make it more of a digital thing, but it didn't really take off. I don't know if that's helpful, but I do know there's like a little bit of an example in that um, using the die cuts, because that is something that we've kind of used as a resource between libraries.
Awesome. Thanks, Courtney. Yeah, I have heard some rumors about this. I'm in the adult services department, so I personally haven't used that service. But that's great to know that there's already kind of um, something kind of going on. So maybe we can expand that with some supplies or maybe get that formalization for like a digital access or spreadsheet going. Yeah, the logistics. Let's see. Linda said the logistics.
Yeah, and I
So
see some comments in the chat here, asking just that, Megan, about
mhm,
logistics. So, are we thinking we'd catalog these items? Kind of curious on how that works. I see a
mhm,
comment from Sam saying that this sounds really interesting, that there are programs because they only have so much funds to buy tools for a certain number of people, but then can end up with extra people who want to attend, but maybe can't because of some
mhm,
limitations. Um, I think, and I'll just throw this out there, is like Megan, you mentioned maybe like a
mhm.
spreadsheet. So it's possible maybe
Yes.
CCS could host a spreadsheet um, on our website that lists materials that are available and who the contact person at like the materials available, the count of materials available, the library and the staff member who um, kind of would be the contact person if you're interested in borrowing these. I think it would be complicated to add them to the ILS if a library
Right.
needs them like on a certain date, right? It becomes complicated with holds. We can't necessarily say or ensure like you would get the thing in a certain time period, or there's no way to like reserve items for a certain period of time. So maybe a spreadsheet
Mhm.
might work.
Yes. Yeah. So I've kind of been playing around with a spreadsheet that maybe would have like the library it's coming from, the type of supply, the number it has. So if I have 15 looms, it'd be 15. So that would be available. And as far as cataloging, let's see, I was didn't want to go super in depth with cataloging in it. Like still keep it kind of informal, but make it so there is kind of like a little bit of tracking with it. And I would reach out, like I can reach out to Rails to see what level of cataloging they might need if they just need like a barcode or something for it to be still passed through with all the other loans that go library to library. So the idea isn't to do super in-depth cataloging the way we would with library of things, but to keep it just enough so that it's understandable and like usable, but library to library. Let's see. Let's see. There's comments coming in.
If there's a way to get pictures of what
Mhm,
people have versus just like a description, I know like on our website in Morton Grove we have like obviously our library of things, and then we use Library Market, so there's like cards for each thing in the library of things, and there's a picture of it, so a little bit of information. I'm wondering if whatever we figure out to host the information, if it's a spreadsheet, we could just have some pictures,
mhm.
but like if there's a way to do it where you can see more information by just visually, I don't know, I just like one library's looms might look different than another library. So if you're asking for
Right.
them, you want to make sure you know how to use that other library's material. I know for us, we actually have a website for our dies so that patrons and other libraries can see what dies we have, and they're all on cards on a website. So I don't know if that's helpful, like as like a example. And I know that we do send the dies through the Rails bands, but part of it is that they're small enough that they are
Mhm.
book-like, like in size, and so they fit into the blue bins. So I don't know how much pushback we'll get, but it's I'm excited that this is being talked about this great.
And Courtney, for the dies, if is there any sort of like reciprocal agreement that if something is lost or goes missing, that are there like replacement costs or has any of that discussed?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we really have ever had any formal agreement about it. It just was like we kind of just share and share alike. Um, and I think it's just kind of up to the library who lends it out to keep track of the fact that that item is gone and then make sure that they get it back. I don't remember in all my years, being around that that was ever an issue. And it's a little bit different because dies are really hard to break, like um, so they're not quite as fragile as maybe something else might be. But yeah, I don't know if we'd need some kind of more formal, like, hey, if you borrow something and you break it, you have to replace it. Um, I think we just all did that. And, like if there was an issue, we just figured it out.
Let's see, so I just submitted a survey into the chat, so you all are welcome to fill that out, just to kind of, so I can gauge your interest and so I can kind of collect the questions and feedback that's going on here. Okay.
Awesome, that's great, Megan. And then is there a certain date that you want people to reply by, like end of week? And then maybe we can talk about based on the responses, um, whether it makes sense for CCS to host some sort of spreadsheet or document like on our website, um, and go from there.
Yeah, let's see. So we can do through, let's see, mid next week. Let's see. So Wednesday, December 17th. Does that sound all right to folks to kind of pass that survey around to whoever you think at your library would be best to fill that out and get it back? All right. So I'll just throw that in the chat. Okay, okay. All right. Well, I look forward to seeing everybody's feedback in this survey, and thank you so much for your input.
Thanks, Megan, for suggesting this. It sounds like a great idea for sustainability and resource sharing. So we'll see, anxious to see what your survey shows.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Megan. Okay, our next topic is a discussion about adult graphic novels. Meg wants to do a poll of different CCS libraries to determine how they handle adult graphic novels.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry that I don't have a camera today, so you'll just have to imagine there's an actual human here. Okay. So the Prospect Heights Library is hopefully going to be pursuing an Eisner grant to expand our adult graphic novels collection. Currently, our adult graphic novels are scattered in our adult collection. So, like for instance, like Walking Dead is just under Kirkwood, I think. And like Mouse is just in the 940s. We have a graphic novel collection in our teen room, but at best it's discouraging adults from going in there and browsing because they feel like they shouldn't be in that space. At worst, it possibly convinces people that these items are just for kids. So that's kind of why we're thinking about pursuing this grant. And one of the things we wanted to do to kind of build evidence that this is like, a standard that we should be meeting is see what other nearby libraries in our consortium are doing with their adult graphic novels. So just kind of anecdotally, if you want to drop in the chat or if you want to just speak up, how does your library handle adult graphic novels? Are they in a separate section? Do you have a separate adult graphic novels, separate teen graphic novels? You just have graphic novels and where is it located? Or are you doing like we are, where it's kind of just scattered in your adult section? And anecdotally, how's that working for you?
Um, Meg, at Carrie, we don't have a super formal adult graphic novel section. Most of our adult graphic novels are in with our teen graphic novels, with the exception of ones that would be too mature for teens, and then those are in adult nonfiction. Um, I would say maybe like as a dream to someday have this not be the case. I think adult graphic novels are important, and having their own section would help people find them better. Um, yeah, because for us, we like only had teen ones, but then with really popular series like Saga, um, that's like on the bestsellers list, that's something that can't necessarily go in our teen collection, due to the nature of some of the illustrations. So we have to put them in adult nonfiction. But then if people are looking for graphic novels, they don't necessarily know where to find them.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're finding too, that people either assume we only have teen graphic novels, or we have teens who just assume we don't carry those titles because, because again, like, yes, a 14-year-old saga might be too heavy, but an 18-year-old, maybe they want it. And we don't, our library policy is we don't prohibit people with certain ages from certain sections. So if somebody wants to check out an adult book on their teen card, it's fine. And yeah, I agree that it kind of hurts discoverability of the collection that people can't browse that particular type of work and wouldn't necessarily think to look in fiction for it or look in the corresponding Dewey. So that's been our experience as well. And that's why we're like, maybe we'll do a graphic novel collection in adults. And I see a lot of things in the chat which are so helpful. Um, So I'm just kind of browsing through those now, and this is
Mm.
excellent.
Hi, this is Nancy from Crystal Lake. We do have a separate adult graphic novel collection,
Hmm.
and it's on the same wall as our young adult graphic novel collection. But we recently split out the more comic book ones like Superman, Batman. They're still within adult graphic novels, but we put a special colored label over them to help
Hmm.
kind of differentiate them from um, the other graphic novels. And so we did that in the teen section as well. So I think that has helped, at least for those that are specifically looking for more of the manga type graphic novels versus the Superman, Batman comic type things. So I
Great.
think that
Okay.
does help.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you.
And Meg, I will go ahead and send out the meeting chat to the group after the meeting's done. That way you don't have to copy paste or frantically take notes on all of the helpful info everyone's popping in the chat.
You read my mind. I was about to just request that if you don't send it to everyone, can I please get a copy? Because, yeah, that'll be super helpful when we're writing up our grant proposal to just sort of be able to say anecdotally of libraries that we pulled in our system, X number say they have this, or, or report that circulation improved when they did pull it out, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you all so much for your help
Absolutely.
on this. And our deadline is January 11th, so I'm going to be busy. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Meg. Our next topic is summer reading. Even though we got a lot of snow on the ground, I know some of us are already starting to think about it. So just a brief discussion if anyone wants to share what their summer reading theme is this year, and any like golden nugget ideas that their library might be coming up with. Okay, Michelle from Huntley said that their library has not yet started talking about summer reading. Meg said that Prospects Heights will be using the iRead Plant a Seed Read. Our library is also going to be doing Plant a Seed Read, as well as McHenry. Okay, lots of I read themes. Think we might be a little bit ahead of the curve talking about summer reading in December. Oh, that's cute. Can you dig it? Oh, Dawn, that's very cute. But the can you dig it and also focusing on the seed library and dinosaurs.
Oh,
Lincolnwood is
Fox.
deciding between seeds or unearth a story. And then Fox River Valley is celebrating their 150th anniversary. So you're doing a birthday theme. That's exciting. Um, oh, that's cute, Meg, that you're going to be hopefully launching your seed library to go with the theme. I hope that's very successful. We've had our seed library for a few years now, and it's just getting more and more popular each year. Okay, well, thanks everyone for sharing. We'll go ahead and move on to our next discussion, which is serial records. But before we start our discussion, I'm going to turn it over to Deborah to review the current cataloging practices for serial records. And then we'll have a discussion on popular series and multi-volume records.
Yes, so I know Tracy suggested this as an agenda item. The request was to discuss cataloging of sets and series. So again, like Becky said, before we jump into that, I wanted to go over our current cataloging practices for the group, just to make sure we're clear on what those are before we start chatting about them. And I think there are a couple of catalogers in here. So if you have comments or clarifications to what I share, feel free to hop in and unmute yourself. So our current practice is to use a single record if the set or series can be sufficiently described by that single bib record. So here on the screen, I have a couple of examples of where we catalog a series on a single record. We often see this with manga or some graphic novel series. So for example, we have One Piece. We currently have 111 volumes housed on the single record for that manga series. We have Naruto, which has 72 volumes cataloged on, again, that single bib. And then an example that was brought up for this meeting was Warriors, The Prophecy Begins, the graphic novel series, which currently has 3 volumes on that single bib record. So how do catalogers decide what belongs on a single record versus multiple records? We have some details on this on the Catalogers Wiki, but I'll do my best to summarize that here today. So we require single records when the criteria listed on this slide is met. So for example, each part is numbered, but doesn't have its own volume title. Again, when we think about manga, if we go back to like One Piece, we see there is not a title for this specific volume, but it does have that number on the cover. When we require a single record, when the content of each part is sequential and cannot be understood on its own. So kind of each volume picks off where the other volume left off. So like a to be continued at the end of each part. We require a single record when each part is numbered and all the parts taken together form like a single unit. So again, they don't sort of stand alone as a dependent, like an independent entity. We do have an exception noted in our Catalogers Wiki about fiction series, especially trilogies. So they don't count as like a single unit because like they don't end with to be continued in a cliffhanger. They don't typically begin like in the middle of the story. So they kind of each stand alone as their own separate unit. I see a question in the chat. Okay. We do require multiple records when, again, the criteria here is met. So there is a significant difference in the responsible persons or organizations between each part. So the example we talk about on the wiki is the Sandman series of graphic novels. So they're numbered, but each volume has a different artist. So it's not the same creators of each volume. Second, there's a significant difference in scope between the parts. So this requires different subject access points, and each part can stand alone. So for example, maybe a science series where volume 1 covers volcanoes, volume 2 covers tsunamis, volume 3 covers earthquakes. Again, that requires different subject headings, different access points for the patrons to be able to find those titles. And then just like in general, we require multiple records or separate records when there's significant differences between parts, again, that require different access points or addition statements. So it's all about access points for the patron, different headings, different subject headings, different creators, different authors, different titles, etc. So we do require same treatment of these types of records across CCS. So there can only be one treatment of the material. So either all libraries' holdings are on a single multi-volume record, or all libraries' holdings are split across multiple records. So a lot of times we see some discussion on the cataloger's listserv when libraries aren't sure which way to go. They collaborate together to determine the best way to catalog these kinds of materials. I did want to mention a change that was made several years ago at this point, because it was mentioned in the agenda submission request. In 2018, at the request of this group, we did change our cataloging practices for specific types of materials. We changed from cataloging test prep, travel guides, law books, and tax prep books. We changed from multi-volume serial records to single monograph records for each edition. And this was to help aid patrons in placing holds. These materials are different from other types of multi-volume records in that in most cases, when libraries are adding new editions, you're withdrawing old editions or outdated versions. So all of the editions of all those editions or volumes together don't form like a cohesive whole. Each new release is sort of meant to replace the old one, which is different from like a manga series where you need the complete set in order for it to be like a full picture of the series. So with that background, I'm hoping I could turn it over to Tracy. I think you're here to share the feedback from your team or kind of get this discussion rolled off.
Yeah, okay. I just want to say from the start, as I mentioned to Deborah, I'm very much the middle person. Some of my colleagues asked me to bring this up, and I think I know what I'm trying to ask. But this, basically their feedback was that, and I think the example Warriors, which is a very popular series for youth, apparently. I work in adult, so I'm not really familiar with it. But it was with Warriors specifically. And basically the feedback was that the multi-volume records don't display well in pack, and that we are having issues with patrons getting confused and placing the hold on like the wrong volume or item. And so, like Deborah mentioned, the example was brought up with travel books. Like we made an exception to those because we were running into holds issues. So they're basically saying a very similar problem happens with the graphic novels and manga being all on like these big records. So talking about making an exception to the case. I don't feel strongly about this, but I was asked to bring it up. So please don't fight with me.
I'll open up to the group to just hear your feedback and your experiences. Do you run into issues placing holds for patrons? Do patrons get confused? when we think about some of these records, again, like One Piece, that's 111 volumes on a single bib record. When you think about splitting 111 volumes across single bib records, do you think that would make it easier for the patron, or more complicated? So feel free, unmute yourself, pop your thoughts in the chat here. Just curious to get a temperature from the room. I see a comment from Lisa in the chat. I'm saying that, patrons do get confused a lot, and that staff also aren't, maybe there's a learning opportunity there for staff to place holds on the right volume number through Polaris. And Tracy mentioned this as well, that there are some software quirks, software improvements that could be made maybe to help aid patrons and staff in placing holds. Currently, if there is not a barcode in the on order record, patrons cannot request that particular item if that on order item has a volume. So libraries are employing some workarounds to add barcodes to those on order, like dummy barcodes to those item records to help aid and make holds placing a little bit easier. Seeing some feedback in the chat, saying that it's maybe easier to place holds in Pack than it is in Leap, especially when it comes to manga holds. That kids do get confused. They want to know what the cover looks like. Presents a challenge for placing hold. Issues receiving the wrong volume. Okay, so maybe some confusion with placing holds for patrons. Again, when they're cataloged on the same record, only the first book's image is available in Pack, which can make it hard to know you're requesting the right one. Maybe something patrons don't do often, so it might be hard, again, just to remember how to place the hold when it comes time to do so. Yeah, and then a comment from Nancy saying it's easier to see how many volumes are in a series when it's part of the same record. Nancy, I'm curious to know, is it easier when I don't necessarily know the hold placing habits of youth, but when people come to place holds, are they looking to place multiple holds at one time, like volumes 1 through 5, or are users, in your experience, kind of just requesting one volume at a time?
I think,
and anyone can answer that.
In my experience, they were usually asking for one volume at a time. Maybe like a call, maybe it was like Walking Dead is what comes to mind for me, since it's in our adult area. Like, I want like 4 through 6 now on hold, something like that.
And Nancy said in the chat, dealing more with adults and teens, and they might want multiple volumes at once instead of just one at a time. I see a comment from Lisa saying it might be challenging because the patron knows the title, but not its volume number. And in her experience, kids want 1 or 2, adults want 3 to 4 at a time if it's manga. And I do see a comment from Jamie at Niles. Thank you for mentioning this, Jamie, that we are switching Discovery interfaces. So I'm really curious to hear again, keep putting your comments in the chat or unmuting. If this is something we would want to look at changing in the future, we would definitely want to wait until we are on our new catalog, because display will change, user behavior might change, and we wouldn't want to make any kind of change to how we catalog without doing some in-depth user testing before we consider a change. So any feedback that you have on this, I think is really helpful. We can take it to our catalogers group, Scrap, to see kind of what they think and if they can see any solutions to the issues that are presented here, and then CCS could potentially, if we decide to relook at how we catalog things, do some user testing. Meg is asking if there's a better way to tag items with their volume number in the catalog, so that would like pop up in search results, especially if they're keyword searching, like for the name and then the volume number, if we would see if there's any way we could change what we do, so that would make it better. Yeah, Lisa, I see your Meg, don't come for me. We're not coming for you. I'm not a cataloger either, Meg. We do have catalogers here, so continue to chime in if we're all off track here. Lisa is saying maybe we could lobby for Polaris 8.1 to have a pop-up that lets you select volume numbers of items when placing a hold. Yes, I think I need to clarify internally the behavior, because in LEAP, I believe that for some of these multi-volume records, staff are presented with a drop-down that allows them to select the volume number, but there is different behavior in PowerPack in which a patron has to go to the actual list of items, find the volume that they would like, and then select the hold. And when patrons do that, they're not placing an item level request, they're placing a volume level request on the volume that matches the item they selected. But I agree that it is not the easiest workflow. It's a little bit clunky for patrons. So I'm with you there, Lisa, that I think that there could be some better behavior in discovery. And again, we're going to change our discovery interface. So we'll need to do a deeper dive into what behavior we see in BiblioCore. Don is suggesting maybe splitting YS materials and keeping adult team materials as multi-volumes, but allowing some flexibility to have a different cataloging practice for youth services materials. And again, Nancy's saying it's easier to see how many volumes are in a series when it's part of the same record. When it comes, and I kind of asked this a little bit earlier, but when it comes to placing holds as staff, do you find it easier when, let's say, you're placing hold on manga and you have just one record with all the volumes? Do you find it easier to place holds when it's like one record versus multiple that you then have to go find?
I would say yes. I also, in my household, have a heavy manga reader, so I find myself placing a lot of holds on, say, like One Piece, or, I could see it being very cumbersome if we were going to separate out like all of the different Pokemon series, right? You've got like Sword and Shield, and then you've got like Diamond, and I don't even know all of the other ones. I could like that list of items to potentially sift through just to find the volume that you want might be overwhelming on both the staff end and the patron end. But that's just my 2 cents. I will say a lot of our heavy manga readers, like they do come in and they're like, I'm reading Jujutsu Kaisen and I need like 7 through 12 or something. And in LEAP, I'm fine, like just sorting and then picking out the individual volumes, but that's me. I can't speak for everyone. So.
Any other thoughts? Well, if you think of anything you want to share after the meeting, or you go talk to your colleagues, or pay attention to that behavior of the users when you're at the desk later today, feel free to send feedback my way. You can just email me directly. I really appreciate this being brought up, and then we can kind of take a look at the feedback as a whole and see if there is some action that we might want to take or some further discussions that we might want to have here. So thank you, Tracy, for being the middle person and bringing this to the group's attention. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, our next item and our final item is a Palace project presentation from Layla Heath and Anna Bem of Rails.
And we are a little bit ahead of schedule, so I'm not sure if they are here yet. Let me just take a look through the chat. Oh, I see Anna here.
Hi, I just hopped in the meeting. What timing?
I know. Is Layla
I'm
coming?
not sure
Should we
Layla is
kill
in
some
yet.
time here? Okay. Well, we can give a quick introduction for everybody here. No rush. We can burn 9 minutes, I think, to make sure that you are all not put on the spot and have to
I can
start
also
early.
talk.
So as many of you know, Rails hosts a e-content platform called eRead Illinois. Recently, due to the dissolution of Baker and Taylor, eRead had to migrate to a new platform. Previously, that program was using the Boundless platform, again through Baker and Taylor. And eRead Illinois recently moved to a new platform called Palace Project. So in CCS, I believe we have 6 something CCS libraries that participate in eRead Illinois. And we got a lot of agenda items for this meeting, questions about that transition and the new platform. So we invited Rails here today to speak to that change. So we have Anna here, and then I believe Layla Heath is going to pop in as well to speak about that
Yes.
migration.
Thank you so much, Deborah. And I just pinged Layla to tell her that you guys are ready for us, and so she should be hopping in any minute now. But I'll go ahead and get started and talk. So my name is Anna Beam. I'm the e-content specialist at the Reaching Across Illinois Library System. And so I work on a couple of the statewide e-content programs that we manage, the BiblioBoard program, and then eRead Illinois, like Deborah mentioned. And Deborah, I think you stole like the first half of what I was prepared to say. No, it was
You can probably
perfect.
say it better, so you can just repeat it.
But yeah, so I am going to talk about the Palace Project, what it is, how Rails came to be working with the Palace Project team, and then how you all can leverage Palace in your libraries, whether you are an eRead Illinois library or not. There are some opportunities if you are not a part of eRead, or if you don't want to join eRead in the future, you can still use Palace. And so like Deborah said, the story starts with the dissolution of Baker and Taylor, when Baker and Taylor announced that they were closing on October 6th. Oh, here's Layla. Layla's here. Since I haven't really started, Layla, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yes, I'm Layla Heath. I am the Director of Library Resources and Programs, and that encompasses deals and discounts, Find More Illinois, Explore More Illinois, and the e-content programs. I work closely with Anna, and thank you so much for having us today. Go ahead, Anna.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we were talking about the closure of Baker and Taylor. So they announced they were going out of business, which, as you all know, very far-reaching implications across library world. B&T, of course, supplies was like the main supplier of physical materials for libraries, but this closure had a direct and outsized impact on the eRead Illinois program as well. As Deborah mentioned, it's because eRead lived on Baker and Taylor's Boundless platform. So if you're not familiar with eRead Illinois, I'll give you a quick kind of rundown of what it is. So eRead is a shared e-content collection of popular ebooks and audiobooks. So it's really similar to like an Overdrive collection if you're a member of an Overdrive consortium like Digital Library of Illinois, which you access via Overdrive or the Libby app. Same idea. It's the eRead Illinois collection that was accessed via the Boundless platform. Right now we have over 800, almost 900 libraries across the state of Illinois that participate in the program. All different library types, public libraries, but we also have academic libraries, school libraries, and special libraries that subscribe to the collection. The program was hosted on Baker and Taylor's Boundless platform. That means that users would access the collection via the Boundless website and app in order to, browse, search, download, read, or listen to that e-content. And then kind of on the back end of that, Baker and Taylor was also our supplier of e-content. So they are the company that we would purchase our ebooks and audiobooks through in order to make them available to our member libraries. So Baker and Taylor's going out of business. We need a new platform for users to access the content, and we also need a new supplier of e-content for us to purchase that content to make available to our members. So after a robust internal process, Rails selected the Palace Project app by Lyrasis as the new platform for eRead Illinois. Some of the reasons for that, so Palace Project has the same basic functionality that Boundless does. It is an app where users can browse, search, check out, download, read, and listen to e-content directly in the app. Palace also has a marketplace where we can purchase content to add to the collection. So it had those main components for us. But the Palace Project also had some really exciting value adds that we are excited to offer to our libraries and that we're going to be excited to offer to additional libraries in the future. So one of those, you may have heard about this feature, is that the Palace Project operates as an e-content aggregator, which means that member libraries have the option of integrating collections from other e-content sources, not just eRead Illinois, into the Palace Project app and kind of make it a one-stop shop for all of their users. So you could have the eRead Illinois collection in there. You could also opt to integrate your Overdrive collection into Palace Project. If you subscribe to Cloud Library, you could bring the Cloud Library content in there, and then the users, what they see, they just see that the content's available for them to check out. They don't necessarily see where it's coming from. They just see that it's all available in one place. So that's a really exciting feature. There are more integrations than that, but those are kind of the main ones that we talk about. Another really exciting value add, the Palace Marketplace, where we purchase content for the collection. It includes access to Audible titles. I think they're the only library e-content vendor right now that provides access to Audible. It's not everything in the Audible catalog, but it is a lot of the popular stuff. I know for a long time, for years, we couldn't get Trevor Noah's biography in audiobook format because it was an Audible exclusive. You can get that in the Palace Marketplace and put it in your e-content collection. Dungeon Crawler Carl, I hear, is very popular. That's another one that's an Audible exclusive that is available for purchase in the Palace Marketplace. And so that's something that we're excited about, and that kind of adds some value. And then another thing they do with their marketplace is that Palace has done a lot of work with publishers to get additional and more favorable licensing terms for e-content. So for a long time, it feels like all we could purchase for e-content were 2-year licenses or 26 checkouts or a 1-year license. With some of the deals that Palace has been making, they are able to offer things like you can have 40 checkouts and 10 of them are simultaneous. And so you could knock out a chunk of your holds in one purchase. They've got they call them like snacks or bite size licenses where you can get 5 simultaneous checkouts for $15 and again kind of knock out those holds. And so that's another really exciting and developing value add that Palace offers. One of the other reasons that we went with Palace is because they're managed by a company called Lyrasis. I think I mentioned Lyrasis once so far. They are a mission-driven nonprofit, and we have worked really closely with them in the past, and it's been a very positive experience. And so with a program like eRead Illinois, it's something that we kind of think of as a partnership, and they've really have been very, very good partners to us in the past and in this as we've been working with them on eRead. And then finally, the Palace app is very user-friendly and very library-friendly. It is relatively simple and easy to use. So if you have kind of a patron who's a novice and you don't want to try and show them how to use 3 different apps, Palace is a great one to show them. And when I say it's library friendly, one of the features, one of the sort of out of the box features of Palace is that it surfaces available content. And so if your patron is looking for something to read right now, it's really only going to show you what they can check out immediately at the top of the app. If they search for something that is checked out and that they need to place a hold on, they will be able to find it. But as far as that browsing experience goes, it's only going to be showing patrons what is available to check out right now. It's not going to be necessarily encouraging them to be placing holds on things. And so that's going to help libraries manage their holds queues and manage their costs when it comes to e-content, which I know is a big concern for everybody. So those were some of the main benefits of Palace. And I know there are some questions about Palace that we'll get to in a minute, but I want to kind of give a quick rundown of where we're at right now in this transition from Boundless to Palace and kind of where we're going in the future. So some of the work we're doing right now, last month we migrated the eRead Illinois collection to Palace. So I think I said the collection is about 80,000 items. So last month we took those 80,000, switched them off in Boundless and switched them on in Palace. What was able to transfer, we were able to transfer over. At the same time, we started onboarding our eRead Illinois member libraries to the Palace Project app. And as of, was it just last week? We had our public libraries and our special libraries went live. And our academic libraries went live yesterday, I believe, and we are working on getting those schools in now. So the membership was moved over to Palace. We are currently ordering new content for the eRead Illinois collection and putting it into the Palace app. We are also hosting a series of trainings and informational webinars for member libraries. And if you're not an eRead member and you're interested, you're welcome to join those webinars as well. We're updating communications regularly, including helping libraries get the word out to their patrons by writing some sample communications for libraries to post on their websites or social media or wherever they need. And we are also going to be sending physical marketing collateral promoting the Palace Project to all of our member libraries, hopefully in the next 2 weeks. I think our goal is to get those out as soon as possible. So that's where the transition is now. In the future, we're looking ahead to 2026, which is in like 2.5 weeks. January is going to be dedicated to onboarding our school libraries. We have over 500 school libraries that are a part of the eRead Illinois program. And so that's really what we're looking at focusing on in January. In February, we plan to begin onboarding new libraries to eRead Illinois. So if you are not an eRead Illinois member and you would like to join, we are planning on opening that up in February. So we're not currently accepting new members as we work through the transition, but we have had libraries reach out and express interest, and we would be thrilled to have you join if you are not currently a member. This coincides with our annual eRead Illinois renewal period. Every current member of eRead Illinois must renew each year, and so at that time we will also be renewing the membership. And then a sort of exciting feature of this is that we will be rolling Palace Project out to all libraries in Illinois in 2026. Even if you are not an eRead Illinois member and you do not wish to participate in the shared collection, you can still use Palace. You can still onboard your library to Palace and use it to integrate your other e-content collections together. That is still going to be an option for you. That's another thing that we are going to be doing in 2026 is opening up Palace to every library in the state of Illinois. I think that was all on my list of things that I had to talk about. I'm going to pause right there. Layla, do you have anything to add before we get into the questions that were sent to us? No? Okay. Deborah, did you have anything that you wanted to add or say before we dive into the questions?
No, just a question that if a library is interested in joining eRead Illinois, would they contact either of you to get a quote?
That they are welcome to reach out to us. We can provide information on where to find the fee information and the how to join. Let me pop that stuff because it's on our website. Let me pop it into the chat real quick. So if you want to go ahead and take a look and see what your fee would be to join eRead Illinois. There is an annual fee to join eRead Illinois, I will say that. But I also will say that 100% of that fee goes towards purchasing content for the collection. This really is it's a cooperative. So the more libraries that join and pay that annual fee, the more content we are able to purchase for everybody to share. No administrative fees, no platform fees. 100% of that annual fee goes towards purchasing content. And the fees are tiered based on your library's operating expenditure as reported to IPLAR. And then, sorry, go. No, go ahead. I was going to talk about how to join. So go ahead, Layla.
I was just going to say, and for new folks joining, and we do this every year, when we open up that renewal, as soon as we can get you onboarded, you're onboarded. You're not charged for that. Your subscription begins 7/1. There is no proration for early admission if you do end up joining.
Yes. And then to join, when we open up the new sign up period, there's just a form on the eRead Illinois website that you will go and fill out. You'll need to log into the website with your L2 credentials, but I will pop the link to the join form in the chat as well. But once you're ready, once that form is up and running and you're ready to sign up, you just log in. It'll pull your library's information based on who your L2 credentials are affiliated with and say, would you like to register for this library? And just check the box yes. Once we get that form submitted to us, we will reach out to you with more information for onboarding. So that's the how to join. I can touch on these questions, Deborah, that you sent over.
So I received questions from a few of you who are here today and sent them onto Rails. So they centered on a lot of things, including stats, the admin interface. So Layla, if you want to could you review the admin interface? And then if you have questions for Rails on eRead, just go ahead, let's start popping them in the chat. And Anna or Layla can answer them as we go along here. So if you've got your questions, pop them in there. And Anna, if you want to start with admin stuff, that'd be great.
Yeah, so the first question was, how do libraries get circulation stats for monthly reports? There is an admin portal, an admin backend. Palace Project calls it the collection manager, the Palace collection manager. When a library is onboarded onto Palace, they get access, a login to their library's collection manager, where they can see, up to the minute stats of how many patrons you have, how many items are checked out, and then you can download reports with all of that information as well. Palace is new to me as well. I am not an expert on the admin portal, but they did recently host 2 training webinars on it. And so what I'll do is I'll pop the links to the recordings for those into the chat. I feel like I'm just going to be popping links into the chat, but I will, let me grab those real quick. And then you all are welcome to watch those at your leisure. Since it's I hope this should work. Those are the 2 sessions. There was one yesterday and one the day before. I apologize. It just says Tuesday, Wednesday. But those will take you to the YouTube videos, the recordings of those trainings. It's the same training. Just, pick your flavor, whichever day you want to watch. But the Palace team goes through sort of the logging in, what you see when you log in, what you can do in the back end, how you can grab those stats, etc. What was I gonna? I think that was what I got about that. And then when I have had a chance to play around with, I've also only had access to the app for about a week now. So when I've had a chance to play around with it a little bit more, I'm sure I'll be more confident in showing the back end and what you can do in it. The next question, can lending periods be changed? Currently set at 13 days. So for the eRead Illinois collection, we kept the lending limits that were set in the Boundless app as well. So it's 2 weeks. So it's 13 days plus the day that you check it out. So 14 days. And so those cannot be changed. Those are set by the consortium. If you have other e-content collections that have been aggregated into Palace, those will keep the lending terms that were set in those collections and those consortia. So if in your Overdrive group, it's 3 weeks. Anything that has been aggregated into the Palace app from that Overdrive collection will check out for 3 weeks. So it depends on the collection it comes from. So for eRead Illinois, like I said, it's set at 2 weeks and it's going to stay that way. But for any other collections, it'll be whatever collection it came from, whatever the lending terms were for that collection. And then I have another question. Can pop-up messages be changed? For example, when borrowing a 6th item, we get a pop-up saying borrow failed rather than saying I'd reached my checkout limits. That's a great question. That is something that we have to talk to the Palace team about changing, but they have been very amenable to updating and changing things as necessary. They do have a feature request board where you can go and request these changes to be made, and then we can also talk to them directly about that. So not right now, but that's something that we can absolutely address with them soon. A question came in, interest in learning more about Palace Bookshelf. So I didn't mention this. One of the collections that is automatically aggregated into your Palace app when you set it up. So if you're an eRead Illinois member, you get the eRead Illinois collection. You will also have a collection called the Palace Bookshelf that is automatically also part of your Palace project collection. That is a collection of free public domain content that exists, that Palace makes freely available to everyone. So it's going to be classics. I found all of Jane Austen's books are available at the Palace Bookshelf, etc. And those are items that are available for simultaneous use. So no holds, no waiting, and everybody can have every single one of those items checked out at the same time if they want to. And then they also have no due date. So once you check them out, you've got it forever if you want it. It'll just sit on your bookshelf and you can read it as long as you want. Or you could return it if you want to too. But that's kind of in a nutshell what the Palace Bookshelf is. I hope that answered the question. And if y'all want to know more about that, feel free to chime in. And then how does the purchase interface work if the library decides to purchase content in the future? Yes, so the interface is called the Palace Marketplace. That is something that we are having a training on coming up on Monday. I'm sorry, Tuesday. Tuesday in January, I'm sorry. A lot of trainings coming up. Tuesday, January 13th, the Palace Marketplace Overview. We're going to be hosting a training where you can learn more about that marketplace, how to join it, how to purchase, and then some of the features of that marketplace. But it operates very similarly to, like Overdrive Marketplace, or if you use TS360 for Baker and Taylor. I believe there are no additional fees for setting up that account, no minimum content spends for setting up that account. You can set it up and never use it if you decide not to. But that is something where I would encourage you to attend that training if you are interested in learning more about that. How does Palace work being an aggregator for other e-content? I talked a little bit about this before, but again, it's if you have other e-content collections that Palace works with, you can aggregate those into the app. So Overdrive, Cloud Library, they work with Blackstone Audio and I believe ProQuest. If you purchase content from those sources, you can have them all integrated into the app. The patron, when they're browsing and searching, they don't see it. Just to them, it looks like one big pool of content. It's not going to be like they have to go to a separate place for the Overdrive books or a separate place for the Cloud Library books or a separate place for eRead. It's all in one place. And then when they find something they want to check out, they can check out right there in the app and read or listen right there in the app as well, regardless of where the content is coming from. One of the questions we get when it comes to e-content aggregation is, does it work with Hoopla? And the answer is no, not right now. And that is because Midwest Tape has decided not to partner with the Palace Project at this time. If that is something you are interested in seeing, Palace encourages you to talk to your reps, talk to Hoopla, let them know you want to see that content in the Palace app. And the more libraries that they hear from, the more likely they are to agree to work with Palace in the future. And then the last question I had beforehand was, will there be any type of tagging system to add books to a to be read list? That is another question for the Palace team, the development team at Palace. I believe that is a feature they are aware of that libraries want. And I believe it is on their development roadmap, but I could be wrong. But one of the lovely things about the Palace team is that they are very transparent about the work that they are doing and the work that is coming down the road. And they have a development roadmap that is publicly available for library members to view and to see sort of where they are in the development process, what their priorities are, what's coming, what has been requested. And then there's also a feature request board. So if you sign up and sort of become a Palace library, you will have access to the feature request board where you can say, hey, I want to see this. And then if you post it, people can upvote it. Or if somebody has already requested the feature that you want, you can also upvote that. And then they do prioritize development work based on what they see in that feature request board. So that was all the questions that I got ahead of time. And are there other questions that came in through the chat that I missed?
Not in the chat, but I did get another question by email. And the question was whether Palace Project or e-read titles will be incorporated into PowerPack, and if so, when. So currently, CCS is in the process of removing Boundless e-read Illinois titles from our catalog. Those are currently suppressed for your patrons, so they cannot see them when they're looking at PowerPack. And it's a lengthy process to delete all of them. There's about 200,000 items. So we're working our way through that list. Currently, Palace Project does not supply MARC records that are complete enough for us to load into Polaris. One thing that they're missing is a URL that would point the patron to the title in a web interface. So Palace Project does not currently have a web interface. The content is only available in the app. So essentially, there is no way right now for us to load records that would then redirect the patron to the title in a web interface. So we've given Palace, or we've compiled some feedback for Palace Project on what we would need in MARC records in order to be able to load them into Polaris. So at some point in the future, hopefully that's a possibility for us. But right now, we're not going to load those records at this time, but as soon as they would be available and ready for us, we could work on that record load. So Rails, if I misspoke there, let me know, but that's my understanding.
That was perfect. And I will say that developing a web-based catalog is a priority for Palace, and they're doing that development work right now. And so we hope to have that available to our member libraries in the not too far future.
And thank you for working with them on that too, Deb, providing the information that you did. It has been so helpful. I will just let you all know, Palace Project, it is really all hands on deck for Rails and has been since this happened 2 months ago. They're pulling people even from other areas. They are really committed to doing what it takes to make this successful. And as Anna mentioned, this isn't the first time this has come up about the web-based, but that was one of our conditions because we need that for the schools. We need that for the K through 12s. It's really essential. And so it has ramped that production from 0 to 100 miles an hour for them over there, along with a few other things that we need for them to do. But the thing that is just great, I think, for future planning is just how responsive they're able to be. They are small enough to be very nimble and responsive to what we need and what you all need. But they've got the chops, they've got the programming chops and the talent to implement what we need them to implement. So, it's a pretty exciting time.
All right, I see a question from Henry Algonquin in the chat. If they are members of eRead Illinois, how would they go about getting the Palace Project admin login information for their library?
Great question. So that information was shared in an email that came from the Palace onboarding team from Tara Carpenter, the onboarding manager at Palace Project, where there was the login information for the admin portal. I can go through my emails and see if I can find that for Algonquin. I can do that after this meeting and then shoot you an email. But yes, that information was provided to every library when they received their email saying they were onboarded.
And Henry, Sarah was the contact for Algonquin, so she may be able to forward you that email that was sent out. I see another question in the chat from Liz at Huntley, looking to talk more about Overdrive aggregation of Advantage titles that are shared. So I think specifically here, Liz is talking about Advantage titles that are shared with their Overdrive consortia. So Huntley has purchased an Advantage title. They have opted to share that title with the rest of their Overdrive consortia, and how that would work with the e-content aggregation in Palace Project.
I believe, and Layla, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that whatever the settings are for the content in Overdrive, that transfers over to Palace, but Layla, you
Yes.
might.
So our understanding is that those two, your Advantage titles and your shared those credentials would come over to share if you are integrating your Overdrive. And if it's not clear, so with the Boundless, with making this transition for our eRead libraries, we had to migrate the collection. We had to take it off of Boundless and bring it over to Palace Project to protect that collection because Boundless was going to not be anymore. When you do something like an integration with another cloud library or Overdrive or another platform, they're not migrated. They're basically shared. So it's living in two places. So you still have your Libby app, you still have your cloud library app. But if you're sharing it, if you're integrating it onto the Palace Project, they're still just like they do if they go straight to the app. They're only accessing what they would get with their library card, same access. So they would have your Overdrive Advantage accounts and the shared Overdrive. And then for the eRead piece, if you have eRead, they would have access to the eRead shared collection. And there's also libraries that have bought additional content similar to Advantage. It was called Unbound. They could buy that content, same thing. If it's specific to your library, it stays with your library. And again, you're giving your patrons kind of an additional option if you have something like Libby, where they can, if they really love Kindle and that's their lane, they're going to want to go to Libby. If they're checking out magazines, Libby. Some just love Libby. Libby's their place. But if they're looking just for a lot of titles, if they're like me where they've got things on hold on every reading app I have, that Palace can really be a good solution because it's just a one-stop shop. And it will help. I mean, one of our missions with eRead is that piece of, helping to alleviate the holds. That's where our focus is on popular titles. So there's some opportunity there, we hope, for doing that even in a better way, just because it's on hold, so we know it's on hold and we can buy it. But what other questions do you have about that? Does that answer some of the questions? There's one thing, if you have cloud library, that linking piece doesn't work for obvious, kind of I guess it would be really hard to do that, but that if any of you have that and have questions about that, we can talk about that separate. But other than that, same thing with cloud library. Are there other questions about that?
Liz, did that answer your question? You can just pop a yes in the chat or thumbs up. All right, any other e-read questions while we've got the Rails team here with us? If questions pop up after the meeting, who's the best person to contact? Should libraries be reaching out to Palace Project Support, reaching out to Rails?
I would say if you're go ahead and reach out to Rails. It's eRead Illinois at railslibraries.org. Let me put it in the
Pop that into the chat.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, eRead Illinois at railslibraries.org. If you have general questions, that hits the whole eRead team at Rails, and then if it is a question for Palace, we will forward it on to them. If you are an eRead library, you've got your Palace Project app set up, and it's a technical question, you're welcome to go ahead and just email support at the Palace Project. But when in doubt, go ahead and email eRead, and we will help you out.
And just let us know as you have questions. As Anna said, we've got to get the schools onboarded in January. We will be starting to promote about sign up for eRead in February, and then we'll be turning our attention to just general Palace Project without eRead integrations. At any point, though, any questions, any observations, good or bad, I mean, we just want to hear from you all. It helps us make adjustments. You guys are boots on the ground. You're hearing the questions. If there are places we can provide further clarification, if there's things that we're putting out there that just, need to be enhanced, or if there's something that's just really, you're like, why are you doing this? We're happy to address that, and a lot of times find a better way, thanks to all of your input and help.
Yes. Yeah, and I cannot thank our member libraries enough for your support and the support from CCS as well. It's been a whirlwind these last 8 weeks, and our libraries have really stepped up and gone above and beyond everything that we've asked, and we cannot thank you all enough for joining us on this wild ride. Thank you.
And good work to the Rails team. I know it's probably been a stressful couple of months for all of you over there, trying to get a solution in place very, very quickly. So kudos to your team as well for, I know, all the long hours you've probably put in over the last month.
Thank you.
All right, well, those emails to contact both the Rails eRead team and then Palace Project Support are in your chat. So feel free to save those if you've got further questions. I think either party would be happy to help out. So thank you, Layla and Anna, for joining us today. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hope you all have a good weekend.
Right. You too. Thank you. And then Becky, I'll turn it back to you because that was our last agenda item.
All right. So we are almost right at the 2-hour mark, so timing worked out really well today.
Beautifully done, Becky. I feel like you kept us right on track. Nice work.
Okay, so then does anybody have anything that they need to add before we go? Any last questions? All right, great. So our next meeting will be Thursday, March 10th, 9:30 a.m. via Zoom. And we'll go ahead and adjourn at 11:28 a.m.
All right.
Question. Is it March 10th or is it March 12th?
Yeah, that sounds wrong, doesn't it?
It's
actually
12th.
March 19th.
Oh, March
19th. Wrong all around. Okay, sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen, for putting that in there. It is Thursday, March 19th via Zoom. So mark your calendars. Sorry, I put the wrong thing in the agenda. That's my bad.
All right. Okay, so we'll go ahead and adjourn our meeting at 11:29 a.m. Thank you all. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. See you in March.